I'm here outside the Mel Bailey Criminal Justice Center in Birmingham, where attorney Doug Jones prosecuted one of the most high-profile criminal cases in state history. Doug invited me to his office, where he shared with me about his work and how the practice of law connects with the practice of faith.
I'm Doug Jones. I'm a lawyer in Birmingham. I founded with a friend of mine the firm of Jones and Hawley. We're a litigation firm. We do civil work, we do criminal work, we do just about any kind of litigation that comes through the door. In a previous part of my life, I was the United States Attorney here in Birmingham for the Northern District of Alabama under President Bill Clinton. I actually started my career after a stint in Washington working for Senator Heflin from Alabama. I worked as an assistant U.S. attorney, a federal prosecutor here in Birmingham for a few years, went into private practice for quite a while, and then was lucky enough to be appointed by President Clinton. So I went back to the prosecution side, and when he left office, so did I, and so I'm back in private practice on the other side. I had the fortune to be at the right place at the right time to be able to bring some justice, I think, to this community with convicting the two former Klansmen who bombed the 16th Street Baptist Church in 1963. And that was really probably the highlight of any career. And there were some other things too. The Eric Rudolph bombing here in Birmingham at the Women's Clinic was under my watch. So we've had a lot of interesting things. It's been a really interesting ride for me, especially in the last 10 to 15 years.
Now, as a lawyer, Doug wrestles daily with questions of truth, fairness, and justice. In his work as a defense attorney, he represents the rights and fair treatment of those who are suspected of having broken the law.
I mean, overwhelmingly in criminal cases, the clients are guilty, at least of something. I mean, statistically, that's the case. And you know that when you go into a case that's true, and you're having to deal with a client sometimes who you want to get the truth out, and there are admissions, and so that you know that that client is guilty of some things. But at the same time, your role as a lawyer, especially as a criminal defense lawyer, your role is to make sure the state proves their case, to stand between the government and putting someone in custody, in prison. And the burden of proof is such that the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that someone is guilty. The defendant never has to prove anything. People forget sometimes that verdicts in a criminal case are either guilty or not guilty, which is a lot different than guilty and innocent.
Now, as a prosecutor, Doug represented the case of the government and the laws of the society at large. While it gave him opportunities to bring some of the worst offenders to justice, he said that as a prosecutor, it was his duty to maintain a focus on the crime and not on a criminal. He says it's sometimes easy for prosecutors and investigators to allow their own prejudices about a case or about an individual rather than the facts to guide their work.
It is very hard to do for prosecutors sometimes. It is very hard for agents who investigate a case for 2 or 3 years to let a case go. Well, you've invested so much time, you've invested so much effort, and to some extent you have convinced yourself that this person is guilty, despite what the evidence shows. There was a time when I was U.S. Attorney, we were reviewing a case in which the FBI was investigating a relatively prominent public official. And the number 2 guy at the FBI office in Birmingham, who left after this pretty quickly, we were walking through the evidence, and I basically was looking at him and the case agent, and I said, guys, this evidence is a lot of smoke. You have no factual evidence to back up this corruption charge. And this agent, who was an experienced guy, and he had moved up in the ranks, he was the number 2 guy in Birmingham, said, well, wait a minute. He said, but everybody knows that this guy's dirty. Everybody knows that this guy's dirty, and we need to get this case done because things will fall into place. Everybody knows he's dirty. And I just looked at him, I said, I got to tell you something. This case is over now. I'm not going to pursue it anymore. If that's the attitude, you are now investigating a person and not investigating a crime, and that's not right. Very, very few people in this world can withstand an intense federal government investigation focused on you that may go on for several years. I mean, everybody's got skeletons somehow, somewhere, some way, that if someone wants to exploit it. And so that kind of goes back to that role of the defense lawyer, to try to stand in between that kind of action and the citizens of the country.
Now, Doug says that one of the fundamental requirements for attorneys is a commitment to their client's interests. For him, that commitment is not motivated by a desire to make money or the prestige that might come from winning a high-profile case, but rather by his conviction that everyone deserves fair treatment and basic respect as a human being, regardless of who they are or what they've done. As a longtime Methodist, this is a conviction shaped by his faith.
Lawyers have to be committed, but the commitment should never waver. You should treat every case with that same commitment, and it's not always easy to do with certain clients. Candidly, I think it all comes initially from faith. I think faith commitments drive family commitments, they drive personal commitments, and they drive professional commitments. It would be a sense of right and wrong that encompasses a lot. It encompasses justice, it encompasses fairness, it encompasses respect, because I believe every individual has worth, and every individual ought to be treated as such, and every individual, regardless of their circumstances, should be afforded the same measure of both legal and social justice as the person sitting next to them. I get frustrated when I see prosecutors not doing the right thing, withholding evidence, pursuing a case when it's just, it's not there, putting someone in prison that doesn't need to be there, or putting them in for such a period of time. I get frustrated when I see people treating others, whether they are people of color or their sexual orientation or whatever, in a demeaning way, in a way that is not, I think, what Christian people should do.